Sandra and Ralph were the picture-perfect couple. Everywhere they went, they turned heads. On social media, they were the golden couple that everyone admired. Ralph, a rising star in the Nigerian film industry, had millions of followers who loved his charming smile, his smooth acting skills, and his seemingly perfect life. His wife Sandra was also by his side and always by his side. With her curvy figure and radiant skin, she was the ultimate definition of beauty. Their relationship appeared flawless. Together, they seemed to have it all: the perfect home, the perfect careers, the perfect family. Sandra was more than just Ralph's wife. She was his partner, his muse. They shared everything: joy, laughter, and the occasional challenge. They often posted pictures of their luxurious lifestyle on Instagram, showing off their trips to exotic locations, dinners at five-star restaurants, and romantic moments that made their followers swoon. Ralph would often caption their photo with sweet words about how lucky he was to have Sandra by his side. "The love of my life," he would write, followed by heart emojis. Just but behind the perfect pose and smile was a bond that was beginning to strain. They had been married for 6 years, and while they were undeniably in love, life had begun to get busy. Ralph's career was taking off and he was working longer hours on set. Sandra, who had always been supportive of his dreams, tried to keep the home together and juggle her own aspirations. She was involved in various charitable activities and had a small business that she ran from home. Despite their busy lives, they still managed to spend quality time together, making sure to show their love to the world and to each other. It was during the filming break that Sandra and Ralph decided to take a short vacation to celebrate their anniversary. They went to a remote beach resort far from the noise of our band, the constant buzz of social media. It was supposed to be a time to reconnect, away from the pressures of their public lives. They rented an expensive beachfront villa with views of the turquoise ocean and golden sand. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore created a peaceful backdrop to their time together. Ralph had rented a private boat to take Sandra out for a romantic dinner on the water. It was a dream come true for Sandra, who had always wanted to experience such a magical night. As they dined under the stars, Ralph couldn't help but express his love for her. "You are everything to me, Sandy," Ralph said, gazing into her eyes as the soft glow of the candles flickered between them. Sandra smiled, feeling truly happy. "I feel the same way, Ralph. I've never been more in love with you." But little did they know that that night would mark the beginning of the end of their perfect life. The next morning, after an early morning swim, Sandra and Ralph decided to go horseback riding along the beach. It had been a spur of the moment decision, something to add excitement to their vacation. Sandra had always loved horses, and Ralph thought it would be a fun way to start the day. As they galloped along the shore, the wind in their hair and the sound of the waves in the background, Sandra felt free, alive. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. One of the horses spooked, and before Sandra could react, she was thrown off. She hit the sand with a sickening thud. Ralph, who had been riding beside her, rushed to her side, panic rising in his chest. "Sandy, Sandy, talk to me," he yelled. But there was no response. Sandra lay motionless on the ground, her body twisted at an unnatural angle. Her chest barely rose with shallow breath. Ralph's heart pounded in his chest as he knelt beside her, trying to wake her up, his hands shaking. It felt like time had frozen. The world around them seemed to blur, and all he could think of was Sandy, his Sandra, the woman he loved with all his heart, lying there in pain and in danger. An ambulance was called and Sandra was rushed to the hospital. The doctors worked quickly, and after what felt like an eternity, they delivered the news. Sandra has broken her spine. The fall had left her paralyzed from the waist down. For Rav, it was as if the world has been ripped from under him. His strong, beautiful wife, his partner in life, was now helpless, dependent on him for everything. He sat in the hospital room holding his hand, his mind racing. Would they manage now? What would happen to their perfect life? And most of all, how would Sandra cope with devastating news? The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital visits, physical therapy, and endless questions. Sandra, once vibrant and full of life, struggled to come to terms with her new reality. The woman, who had once danced across the room with confidence, now lay in a hospital bed, barely able to move. Ralph stayed by her side, but the strain was beginning to show. He was overwhelmed by the responsibility of caring for Sandra. At first, he was determined to be strong for her, to be the husband she deserved. But slowly, the weight of her condition began to take its toll on him. He couldn't focus on his career anymore. He couldn't make the public appearance he once did. His acting career, which has been on the rise, now seemed insignificant compared to the reality of his home life. Sandra saw the changes in Raphael. She could feel the distance growing between them. Even though he tried to hide it, his eyes no longer sparkled with the love he had for her, and his smile seemed forced. She felt guilty knowing how much he was sacrificing, but she couldn't help but wonder, was this her fault? But Ralph didn't say anything. He just carried on trying to balance the responsibilities of being a husband, caregiver, and an actor. It wasn't long before he started spending more time away from the home. He would leave for work and come back late exhausted. His friends, Nedu and Olisa, started showing up more frequently, encouraging him to take breaks, go out and have fun. You deserve to live your life, Rav, Nedu said one evening. His words laced with a subtle suggestion. You're not a caregiver, you're an actor. Go out and enjoy yourself. You can't be stuck here forever. Rav didn't answer, he just nodded silently, agreeing with his friends. Though he didn't yet understand what their words meant for his future with Sandra. Sandra, meanwhile, was trapped in a world of loneliness and despair. The woman who had once been the center of her husband's soul now felt invisible. The constant physical therapy, the frustration of her limitation, and the ever present question of what her future held took a toll on her mind and spirit. It was only a matter of time before their once perfect life would begin to unravel piece by piece. The days after Sandra's accident were filled with an overwhelming silence. Ralph tried to feel it, but nothing seemed to ease the tension between them. He was no longer the man Sandra had married, her dependable, loving husband. Instead, he had become someone she barely recognized. The stress of caregiving weighed heavily on him, and Sandra could sense it in every glance he avoided, every sign he let slip when he thought she wasn't looking. Sandra's days were consumed by hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and endless therapy sessions for Sandra. At night, he collapsed into the bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. He knew she needed him, but he also knew he wasn't enough. There were moments when he felt suffocated by the pressure. He wasn't prepared for this kind of life, not this responsibility, not this burden. He wanted to be there for Sandra, but in the quiet of the night, the reality of life felt like a cage. One evening, after a particular long and draining day, Ralph sat on the balcony of their home, his head in his hands. He could hear the soft sound of Sandra's voice inside as she spoke to the nurse. She was working hard to regain some independence, but it was slow. Every day was a battle for her, and it felt like Ralph was losing the fight too. He longed for escape, for something that would make him feel alive again. It was then his friends, Nejo and Olisa, showed up, and as they often did these days, they didn't say much at first. They could see the weariness in Ralph's eyes. After a long silence, Nedu spoke up. You need a break, my man. This isn't something you were prepared for. You don't have to be a superhero. Ralph didn't respond immediately. His thoughts were chaotic, tangled with guilt, frustration, and anger. He always prided himself on being a strong man. But now, he wasn't sure he was strong enough for this. For Sandra, for himself. She needs me, Ralph finally said, his voice hoarse. Of course she does, Olisa chimed in, but you need you too. What about your career? What about your happiness? Ralph's head snapped up at that. What do you mean? You are an actor, man, Nedu said, leaning in. You can't just give up everything because of an accident. She'll be fine. You can't be here every time. You deserve to live a little too. The words felt like a punch to Ralph's gut, but there was a part of him, a part he didn't want to acknowledge, that agreed. He has been suffocated and maybe they were right. He wasn't sure anymore. The weight of his responsibilities felt unbearable, and the loneliness he felt every night when he sat next to Sandra in silence only made it worse. That night, Ralph went to sleep with the seed of doubt planted in his mind. The next day, he did something he would later regret deeply. He bought a brand new luxury car. It wasn't for him. It was for his personal assistant, Linda. Linda had been working with him for months, helping him with his schedule, running errands, making sure he was always on time. She was attractive, professional, and seemed to understand him in ways Sandra no longer could. Linda had been a breath of fresh air. She was the exact opposite of Sandra, young, vibrant, and carefree. When Ralph handed her the keys to the sleek black sports car, her face lit up with gratitude. The moment he saw the excitement in her eyes, something inside of him stirred. It wasn't just the car, it was the feeling of being appreciated, of being seen by someone for who he was. It wasn't the tired, stressed out man he had become at home. He was the actor, the man who had once been admired and adored. Sandra, however, was not impressed. She had noticed the new car in the driveway and instantly knew it wasn't for him. She felt a pang of jealousy and confusion. Why had Raphael bought such an expensive gift for Linda? Why didn't he buy something nice for her, something that would lift her spirit? She has been working so hard, trying to adjust to her new life. She had hoped Ralph would be her rock, her source of strength, but instead, he had distanced himself even further. When Ralph came home that evening, she confronted him. Ralph, why did you buy Linda a car? Sandra's voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge to it. Ralph's heart sank. He had hoped she wouldn't notice. It's just a car, Sandy. She's been helping me a lot lately. I thought it would be a nice gesture. A nice gesture, Sandra repeated, her voice raising. You bought her a luxury car, Ralph. You barely get him by, and we think it's a nice idea. I didn't mean to upset you, Ralph said, rubbing his temples. I just needed to do something. I'm under a lot of pressure right now. And it's not just about you, it's about me too. Sandra's face hardened. She could feel the tears swelling in her eyes, but she forced them down. So you are saying that this is all too much for you? You want to escape? Rap didn't answer. He couldn't. He could see the pain in her eyes and it broke him. But there was a part of him that felt trapped. He didn't know how much longer he could live like this. His career, his friendship, his freedom. It was all slipping through his fingers. Days passed and Ralph's emotional disconnect grew. He stopped coming home early. He stopped making an effort to talk to Sandra. Instead, he started spending more time with Linda, inviting her to events and making sure she felt appreciated. Slowly, he began to enjoy the attention she gave him. The lightness of their interaction, it was easy. He didn't carry the weight of responsibilities that his life with Sandra did. Sandra, meanwhile, was at home alone in her thoughts. She had started therapy to help her cope with the physical and emotional scars from the accident, but it wasn't enough. She needed Ralph. She needed him to love him the way he once did. But each time she tried to rekindle their connection, he pushed her away. Then one evening, Ralph came home late, his face flushed with excitement. He told Sandra he has been with Linda, but he didn't need to explain further. Sandra already knew. The betrayal stung like nothing else. She felt as though her world had shattered once again. Is there someone else? Sandra whispered, her voice trembling. Ralph hesitated, avoiding her gaze. I don't know what you want me to say, Sandra. I'm trying to hold everything together, but I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And just like that, the final thread of their relationship snapped. Sandra never felt so invisible in her life. Each day, the weight of her paralysis was made heavier by the emotional distance that grew between her and Ralph. The man she had loved, the man she had built a life with, was slipping further and further away. His presence, both physical and emotional, was suffocating her. The pain of watching him drift into the arms of someone else was unbearable. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was a crushing realization that Ralph no longer saw her as the woman he once adored. Sonia, Sandra's best friend, noticed the change in Ralph before Sandra did. She saw the signs, the late night, the phone calls, and the whispered conversation that never seemed to be about work. It wasn't long before Sonia confronted Ralph. One afternoon, while Sandra was at her therapy session, Sonia paid Ralph a visit. She had always been close to both Ralph and Sandra, but in recent months she had started to notice the cracks in their relationship. She could no longer stand by and watch as Ralph tore their marriage apart. "You need to fix this, Ralph," Sonia said, her voice shaking with a mix of frustration and concern. "Sandra is your wife. You promised to stand by her no matter what." Ralph sat on the edge of the couch, his fingers tapping nervously on his phone. He didn't look up when Sonia spoke. He already knew where the conversation was headed. He knew Sonia would try to make him feel guilty, but the guilt had stopped working on him for a long time. "I'm trying," Ralph said, his voice weak, as if the words were forced out of him, "but it's not enough. She needs too much. And I can't keep doing this. I'm not the man I was before the accident. I don't know who I am anymore." Sonia sighed and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I get it, Ralph. I do. But you can't just leave her like this. You can't just walk away from everything you built together. You owe it to her, to yourself." But Ralph wasn't listening. His mind had already made up his decision. He was exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally. He was tired of feeling trapped in a life that no longer felt like his own. He had been running on empty for so long that he didn't know how to find his way back. Days later, at a public event where Ralph had been invited to present an award, he arrived with Sonia by his side. The two of them looked perfect together. Ralph in a sharp suit, his arm casually draped over Sonia's shoulder. They looked like the new power couple, a sharp contrast to the image of Sandra and Ralph that had once captivated the public. Sandra, still processing the news of Ralph's infidelity, watched the event from home. Her heart twisted in an agony as she scrolled through the social media where pictures of Ralph and Sonia surfaced, smiling and laughing together as if nothing has ever happened. The captions, filled with hashtags like hashtag relationship goals, hashtag couple goals, made her want to scream. Was this what he wanted? Was this the life he chose over her? Then, just as the world seemed to be falling apart, a video surfaced online. It was of Ralph and Sonia backstage at the event, kissing. The video spread like wildfire across social media, and the public was quick to judge. Many began to question Ralph's loyalty and the integrity of his marriage. The media pounced on the story, calling Ralph a cheat, a man who abandoned his wife for the allure of another woman. The backlash was swift, but Ralph didn't care. He brushed it off as a misunderstanding. "It was just for the cameras," he said in a public statement, his voice cold and dismissive. "Sandra and I are fine. We're going through a rough patch, but it's not what everyone thinks." But the public wasn't convinced. Fans who had once adored him now felt betrayed. His fellows began to criticize his actions, calling him out for his lack of integrity. Some even wondered if the image of their perfect life was just a facade. As if it wasn't enough, Ralph forced Sandra to make a video for the public, one in which she confirmed that the kiss was staged for the press. Sandra, sitting in a wheelchair, her heart shattered by the betrayal, complied. She hated every second of it. The woman, who had once been admired for her beauty, strength, and grace, was now forced to play a role in Ralph's lies. I don't know what people are saying, she said, her voice trembling in the video, but it's all fake. Ralph and I are fine. We're just walking things through. A video made her feel small. The video made her feel small, insignificant, and utterly defeated. She felt like a puppet, her strings pulled by Ralph's need to maintain his image. The truth didn't matter, only the public perception did. We've come to the end of this first part of the story. I hope you did enjoy this amazing story. Please stick around for the second part. See you later.